Welcome to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman, a podcast loaded with practical tips, powerful scripts, personal stories, and simple steps to make even the toughest conversations easier. So get ready to get the information you need to make the impact you want from someone you trust, your friend, parenting expert, Dr. Robyn Silverman.
Hey, sweet friends, guess what? Our Kidversation cards are now available for sale on kidversationcards.com. Anytime that you've been worried about how to start these conversations, how to get moving, and just have these very interesting conversations with your kids where you can talk about bravery, when you can talk about open-mindedness, mindset, they are in these cards, 52 cards, and you can go at it once a day for 3 to 5 minutes or even a couple of days a week. You can use a Kidversation card. On the front is the definition and a question that you can pose at dinner time or when you're on the run, standing in line or in a long car trip. And on the back, a 4-step flow that helps a child and, of course, the whole family pick something that they can do to help move that word forward. So if it's courage, they can do something to help them be more courageous that day. It's a really neat way in 3 to 5 minutes to get talking. All right, let's get on with the show. Talking with children about illness, especially a parent's illness, can feel overwhelming. What do we say? How much do we share? And how do we provide comfort when we ourselves are struggling? Today, we're going to explore how to navigate these difficult conversations with honesty, with love, and connection, helping children feel safe even in times of uncertainty. Paula Schneider is the president and CEO of the Susan G. Komen organization, the world's leading breast cancer organization and a breast cancer survivor. Inspired by her own diagnosis and the moment she had to explain it to her young daughter, Paula wrote her debut picture book, Love Stays Strong, which is out now. And if you're looking right now on YouTube, here it is. It's a beautiful book. And if you're in a situation where you feel like you need to discuss something like this with your kids, this is a great time to pull out this book and use it as a springboard. This heartfelt story offers families a gentle way to talk about illness, reminding children that no matter what the future holds, love endures. I want to welcome you, Paula, to How to Talk to Kids About Anything.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. Before we jump in, we have a new tradition on this show where we do a little game called High, Low, Buffalo, which is telling us a high that's happening right now, a low that you might be experiencing, and a buffalo, an interesting fact about you that other people might not know. I will start so that you can have a little bit of time to think. So my high is what I mentioned at the top of this show. I have this product that came out just recently, called Kidversation cards. And they are such a long time coming. I used to, when my kids were little, I rip up little pieces of paper with little questions on them and put them in the center of the table when we were eating. It helped to stop sibling rivalry and guide our conversation a little bit more from whining about what other people had on their plates or, what the brother or sister were doing right now, and instead focus attention on something that we found really important and underscore the values of our family. So I took all of that information and then put action behind it and created these conversation cards. And I'm so excited. So anybody interested, that's at kidversationcards.com. My low, I found out recently that a friend of mine, her daughter is going through some mental health issues. And gosh, it's just really underscores how hard some of these kids are having it these days and how much we really do need to talk about these tough topics and lay them on the table. My buffalo, well, I'll tell you, we mentioned this before we even got started today. My neighborhood was modeled after a movie. So I have, there's a big tower in the middle of it with a clock tower and all this green space and sidewalks on both sides. And it's such a pleasant place to be. When I first came into the neighborhood, when we were just looking at it, I just felt like the way that the streets were lined with beautiful trees and how people were out sitting on benches. It did feel like you were in a movie, and the people are really show up as community members. So I love that. What about you? What's your high, your low, and your buffalo?
Okay. Well, my high is easy because both of my daughters have new babies. And
Oh,
they're
yay! How fun!
oh, it's the greatest. And one is my little Mila girl is 14 months old, and my little Hayes boy is 9 months old. So
Oh,
that's the high almost every single day because you get to relive again without having all the responsibilities.
yeah, that sounds nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. And then when they cry or whatever, you're like, here you go. Have
Yes,
at it,
you
mom.
want mommy or daddy, or
Yeah,
whoever you want. Yeah.
but that's been really, really great. And looking forward to more grandbabies, and I think they'll be happening.
Nice.
My low is literally having to talk regularly with young women and women in general that have breast cancer or
Mm,
have been diagnosed with breast cancer because it's
mm,
hard.
yeah.
And, which is also the impetus of my book. And my buffalo is that I have had the opportunity to ring the bell at the New York Stock Exchange 3 times. It was supposed to be a once in a lifetime
Wow.
thing. And then it turned out to be twice in a lifetime, and then 3 times in a lifetime. And now, there's conversation about me ringing the bell again for my book, which would be really fabulous because that would
Wow.
4 times in a lifetime, and it really is a very special moment.
That
But
is super exciting.
yeah,
Wow. Well, I congratulate you on all of that. That all sounds amazing to me. And congratulations on your book. Again, it's Love Stays Strong, and it's a children's book. And it's so beautifully written. It's so thoughtfully written. I'd like to get a baseline so everybody can get on the same page. So, you were diagnosed with cancer and needed to explain what was going on to your daughter.
I have
It,
2 daughters. There's
two
just
daughters.
we
Okay.
only illustrated one, and it's not because she's my favorite. It's just because that's how it worked. We only
Yes.
illustrated one of my dogs too, so you know.
All right. So now this is like behind the scenes, is
Yeah.
actually too. So in the book, you explain I'm changing too. Some days I may look different, some days I may feel different, but through it all, love stays strong. And when you go on a few pages later, you say, my voice may become softer, my body may grow weaker, but through all my changes, my love for you stays strong. You really focus on the fact that there may be changes in routine, how you show up, but your love remains strong. How do you explain, or how did you explain your diagnosis to both of your daughters when you first heard what was going on with you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. My daughters were older. They were 11 and 13 at the time. This is a children's book, and I just want to say the reason that this came to be is because in my role at Human, I regularly speak with women that have just recently been diagnosed with breast cancer. And in a sort of a month time frame, I spoke with 5 women that were in their 30s, and 4 of them had children, young children. And one of the main questions that they asked is, how am I going to tell my kids? Because, if I'm going to lose my hair, if I have chemo, if I have to go, into the hospital to get an operation, and I don't want to scare them, but I want to prepare them. And I thought, I'm going to create a tool for that, which is what started. And I got up, I walked to my husband's office at the other end of the house, and I said to him, okay, I'm going to write a book. It's going to be for Komen. I'm going to give all the proceeds to Komen. It's going to be a children's book, and it's going to be the ability for younger women who have been diagnosed with breast cancer to tell their children that they have something wrong. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have to talk about the C word or cancer, because actually in my book I don't talk about that at all. And that was very intentional because what we wanted to do was make it disease agnostic. And also, it could be mommy or daddy.
Right.
It's just anyone who has some issue, it could be auntie too. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It was a through line to where you could just explain, and it's a springboard, right? It's the ability to start the conversation in a lovely way. It's not scary, etc. My own world was sitting down for a little family meeting. I could barely contain myself and started to cry, because the worst thing in the world is having to tell your kids that
Yeah.
there's something significantly wrong with you. And at 11 and 13, I really wanted to be around for the tougher teenage years coming for girls. And so I explained what was going on. I told them that I was going to have to go into treatment, but that I was always going to be there for them, and that my love was always going to stay strong. And then I specifically planned this to where we went to a Greek festival right after it with family friends. And they all knew that I was going to do it this way so that we could show that life goes on. You're going to have to deal with this. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And you have to allow kids to absorb it the way they absorb it. Now,
Mhm.
younger kids, in some ways, is a lot easier because they don't necessarily understand that this could be life threatening. Whereas older kids, especially, you can look it up, they can see what's happening, and they wanted to know, like, are you going to live?
Mm.
The first
Mm.
question. And the
Mhm.
answer then was, I don't know, because I had triple negative breast cancer, which is a very difficult form of breast cancer with a higher mortality rate. All I wanted to do was to live and spend more time with my family, which is what propelled my future and my career into this role.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. When I talk about this in How to Talk to Kids About Anything, my book, but when my friend's son was diagnosed with cancer in 2018, it was very important to the mom, my friend, to make sure that her daughter was recognized, was experiencing, was feeling community.
Hmm.
And you also mention this in your book. Can you talk about how you enlisted a strong community for your daughters and the impact of that?
I didn't necessarily enlist them. They showed up
Nice.
in droves, and some people didn't. And, that's sort of a telltale sign too. But I had my oldest daughter had a little boyfriend at the time, and her mother and I are still extremely close friends. And Carol, the mom, is an amazing cook. And so my daughter Zoe would go over her little boyfriend Ethan's house and eat a lot of her meals. And then Chloe, my little one, decided, oh, Carol's cooking. I'm going to go. Oh, Mrs. Borland's cooking. I'm going to go over there and eat with her. And Carol fed my kids. And I will never, feel, I mean, I will always be indebted to what that is. And then my other friend, Michelle, her was Zoe's best friend, Mallory's mom. And she fed my kids and she took them places. And, they just sort of swarmed in and
Mm.
helped. And they also helped with fundraising, and because that was important to me once I got through treatment. And, it formed this friendship that has been an incredible friendship for years and years and years. And,
Mhm.
they both still mean the world to me. But people do show up, and you let
Yeah.
them show up. And probably the hardest thing is allowing when you're used to being large and in charge, because I ran major businesses. I think I was running a $500 million company at the time. And, in a massive turnaround situation. And I had to continue with that and go through treatment and take care of my family. And my type of chemo, I would be down for like 9 days.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
very, very difficult, but people show up, and allowing them to do what they do and accepting it with grace is very cathartic for you.
I feel like I need to just highlight those two things. One being that you need to let people show up. You said that so beautifully. And the other being that some people will fall away and that's okay. We
That's okay.
can't, right. We can't make people behave in the way that we would like them to or in the way that we would have if the tables were turned, or that we actually did when the tables were turned. I've certainly found that in my own life, and that's life goes on, right? And the people who show up, those are the people who are the long-term friends. Those are the people that you put your soul into as well. I remember when my friend's son was sick, and her daughter was starting high school, so flew down there and did her hair and got her ready for
Yeah.
high school, and be just to be
Show
there
up.
because it was momentous. It was still momentous. And I think that having your community, I love the way that you were saying, like, this woman Carol fed your children. It's more than the food. It's you're feeding them, all of the things that they need at that time that you are unable to provide because you're just trying to survive and get through your 9 days of being down. And
Hmm.
I think there is something to allowing people to show up for your kids during this time is doing something.
Oh,
It
it's
is it's
totally doing something.
profound. Yeah.
I'll never forget when Chloe came home and said, Carol baked the most delicious apple pie. Could we bake a pie? And I'm thinking, oh my God. So I call Carol and I go, tone it down, sister. You're killing me here. I can't really bake pies right now, but I took Chloe to the grocery store. We bought a graham cracker crust with chocolate pudding and whipped cream and made a pie.
You made it work.
That's
You
all
did
I
your
could
own
do. But
version.
that was I didn't eat it, but I did make it.
Love that. So in your book, you explain, did you know that a few drops of honey can fuel a bee's flight around the world? Your love is like honey for me. On the days when I'm too tired to get out of bed, it's your love that keeps me warm. Kids often feel that they can't do anything to help,
Yeah.
but they really can. In the same way that we feel like we're not able to do something when we're down, but you can by allowing people to help. Can you talk about how you explained to your daughters that her it's just being there, less showing up, that's her love that helped to keep you strong, and what that could look like for a child, how that love can be transferred so that they know that showing up was enough.
It's a bit tricky because my oldest daughter, and the three of us are incredibly close, always have been, always will be. But my oldest daughter was just starting high school, and her way to deal with it was she couldn't. And so
Mm.
she was literally at other people's homes, or, which is why I knew that at Carol and Michelle's homes, she was safe, and Kay's, and, like all the different women that, came together for me. But her way of dealing with it was she just couldn't. When she came to the hospital to see me after my mastectomy, she literally was going to faint. And I had to tell my husband, you got to take her out of here. This isn't good for her. And you can't take it personally because I know how much she loves me. The
Mhm.
way that she loves me is so deep that she couldn't deal. And you can't, you have to just let them do what they do. On the flip side, my younger daughter was like, let me see your stitches. Let me see that. What's that? What is that?
Different kids,
Is that
different
important?
kids.
What is that hole there? And wanted to see every little thing and wanted to sleep with me every night. So, I
Mm.
mean, it didn't mean, it just meant that that's their coping mechanisms.
Mhm.
And you, as the adult, even though you're in your own world of hurt, have to take into consideration that each kid is going to deal with this differently. And you got to just let them do it and not, certainly I didn't take it as any affront. I just wanted to help her get through it, both of
Mhm.
them, in the ways that they could do it and feel good about it.
Because it's not just you that has this diagnosis, it's the
No, it's the
family.
family.
It's
It's
the
the
family.
family. So,
Yeah.
I was probably most worried about my husband
Mm.
because he was really affected by all of this, of course, and
Hmm.
he was totally there for me.
Oh, that's amazing. And really, again, just shows you who you have in your life and what their love looks like when things are not going perfectly well.
Yeah.
We want our children talking to key adults in their lives when big feelings get too big for them to hold themselves. So sometimes it's not the other parent. They're already overburdened. They're just trying to get through the day as well. It sometimes isn't us. And when it's happening, to us, it can be hard to be that person, especially because the perspective isn't really there.
Yeah.
You mentioned that talking to someone can make kids feel better in your book. So, how did you help set this up for your own daughters, or how do you talk about this with the women who come to you in your life, so that they feel supported in this key way?
It was organic. It wasn't literally where I had a conversation like, can you help me or will you help me or this is how I'm dealing with it. I was just in the throes
Hmm.
and people, the support system. That's why I wrote in there that questions, did you know that questions make your brain
Yes.
bigger? And, you should ask as many questions as you want and you can ask me anything. And then I also have this sweet little page where they're at an aquarium and there's dolphins. And did you know that dolphins hang out in pods and that the pods play together and learn together and stay together for life? And you have a pod. And so it's sort of intimating that there's other ways that you can deal with this too. And if you need to, again, it's a springboard, right? The conversation is all about getting kids to talk to you about what they're feeling so that you can make the appropriate choices for your family.
Right. And it may be somebody who is directly in your pod, or you may need some professional help.
You may.
You may, and have somebody who has expertise and perspective that's outside your pod to assist. And there's certainly no shame in that. And that is actually a terrific way
Yeah,
of
good
helping
idea,
your kids.
probably, if you can, and if you have the means and the
Yes.
ability to do that.
Right. If you can, that could be a great way of dealing with things. Otherwise, an aunt, a teacher, a coach,
Yeah,
these are when these key adults step up.
yeah.
There's research I have cited many times that says that, we young people need at least three people to turn to in a time of need or challenge. This is one of those times. So step up. You may be a parent right now. You might be a grandparent. You might be a teacher or coach listening to this show. Maybe you don't have kids directly to yourself, but born to you or adopted, but you deal with tons of
Uh,
kids, you do, and you can be that person to them. I love that you mentioned the idea of the questions, because this podcast, my book, everything, how to talk to kids about anything, is all related to how we talk about tough topics, and we have to engage in hard things, and we have to invite these tough questions. It doesn't
I'm going to
mean,
just open the door for my
oh,
dog.
sure.
He's trying to get out, and that's always a sign that he needs to get out. Go ahead. Sorry,
No
I'm
worries.
back.
Yeah. So we know that, on this podcast or in my book, we talk so much about how we must talk about tough topics, how we have to engage in these hard things, and we have to allow these tough questions to be asked. So, what did this look like for you? When your daughters came to you, did they ask tough questions? And what kinds of questions did you need to answer in a very realistic but sensitive way?
Well, the first question is, are you going to die? That's the first question that came flying out of their mouth. And I said,
Hmm.
I don't plan to. No, because there is no reason to scare kids. Even if you had metastatic cancer, and you knew that ultimately that was probably what was going to take you out, there's a time frame, right? So I think preparing kids is important, but let them live and do as much as you can because you could live for decades with metastatic or it could be quicker, right? I
Hmm.
don't have metastatic disease, thank God. But I didn't know what I had at that point, and it was just the very beginning of the journey. So you had to go through the journey and understand what you were going to share and what you weren't going to share. I mean, but they could see how deathly ill I was, and the chemo that I had was way worse than any chemos today. In fact, they don't even use the chemo that I had because there's good. The good news is that there's way better treatments that are less difficult on your body because of the research and all of the work that's been done by organizations like ours and others. So it's a when they can see you that sick, then it is hard for them. But, it was just letting them know that snuggles help, and, sitting with mommy helps, and reading a book together, or any of those things. But there's a lot of trying times when you're going through this. And I had a year of treatment. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, it was a marathon.
How did you see your kids coping with it when things got really bad? You mentioned that one of your daughters really was needed to be out and go somewhere else. But what else did you see that they were taking in, and were there any things that you felt like needed to be dealt with right away to help them
I
better
think,
cope?
a lot of kids will have behavioral issues because of something like this that my
Right.
kids didn't. And as a matter of fact, I joke because, it's that age when usually girls start fighting with their mom, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we had a nanny that I'd had literally forever, because I was a working mom, and they would fight with Lupe. And I was like, Lupe, thank you so much for fighting with my kids, because, they need someone to fight with, and they
Mm-hmm.
feel bad for mom. And so we never went through that stage of
Mm-hmm.
where, because they couldn't really take anything out on me when I'm skinny and bald and barely making it through the day. I'll never forget my youngest daughter, Chloe. We were working on some assignment for school, and I think she was in seventh grade. And it was a computer assignment. We were sitting in the home office working on it, and I snapped at her about something. And, she didn't really even do anything, but I was feeling so crappy.
Right.
And she looked at me and she wanted to yell at me. And then but she knew she couldn't. She goes, "What's the matter? Did somebody spit in your chemo?"
Oh,
I thought that we deal with humor a
that
lot.
is really funny.
Oh my God. I thought that was the most hysterical thing. And I said, yes, yes, I think that's what happened, is that somebody spit in my chemo. And we both laughed. She has no recollection of that. And I remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh, it was
So,
it was integral into how
yeah.
you were dealing with things. It's
You try
perfect.
you try to live as normally as you possibly can, and, be there for them, to do the small things. Like, I tried to still do their homework with them, and, and we created, during the course of, I think, before this and all through this, is when homework would get too rampant, and any mom they have kids that are helping with homework. Oh my God, there's always the meltdowns.
Yes.
That was my worst time frame for kids, is when you had to help them with their homework every night. And then we would have tea, we would chat, and now they still, which is really interesting to me, carry that over. Whenever there's a moment, they stop, they have tea.
Nice.
I didn't plan that would be sort of a tradition probably will carry on to their children, but that they think of and revert to because of the times when we did it, that was sort of a level drinker. But that was literally the act of doing it
It's
had a calming
beautiful.
feature, right?
Yes, that is beautiful. It is a great coping mechanism. And I've had Janine Halloran on the show who does all about these types of calming techniques and coping mechanisms. And drinking tea does calm the body. Has to do with being a hot liquid and the steam and all of the properties of the tea. So I think that is beautiful. I love that.
It was a little bit more ceremonial, right?
Yes.
Anything else, and then it signified, okay, we're going to calm down now. We're
Love
going to
that.
start again. And yes, the math is hard, but we're going to get through it.
Yeah, it is a
So,
beautiful idea.
what was interesting to me was, at one of my book signings, they invited child psychologists, teachers, grammar school teachers, and people that were in the medical field to have a conversation with me. And a lot of the questions was like, what kind of background do you have that created this? And none of it.
Hmm.
I said, I wish I were that deep. It's just, I wrote it from the heart, and then tweaked it, and, to where it was always the through line that I love you, and that I'm always going to be here for you, and my love for you will always be here regardless. Even if the worst possible outcome happens, you were loved. uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I think just explaining that there's ways for them to get through this and what they can do to help, because kids always want to help too. And
Yes.
what transpired with mine was that we ended up, when I got done with cancer, I ended up doing, I was before I was at Komen, but I ended up doing the Avon walk.
Hmm.
And Zoe was 15 and Chloe was 13 at the time when I was done with treatment. And you had to be 16 to do this walk. And so I lied to get both of them in because then they started raising money for breast cancer.
Wow.
They started the Pink Club at their school, and they, had all of their friends that did the walks with us. And then we started having these events every summer. They were the pink parties every summer where we would raise money so that they could get the initiation fee to do the walks. And it took on a life of its own. And I did this for like 5 years. It was kind of like having a wedding for free where you ask everyone for everything. Every year there were 300 or 400 people that ended up coming every summer to this big event. And, we lived in a small town called South Pasadena, and people showed up because everyone knew what was happening, because there was one high school, one junior
Hmm.
high, and three grammar schools. So it allowed them to help and find ways that they felt were really meaningful. They recruited people from school. They had a car wash. They had a bake sale. They did all of these things. They helped with the pink party. They gave hours to serve food and cocktails or whatever it was at the pink parties, and so they were involved
Mm.
in
Yeah. It's a
the
beautiful legacy.
yeah. I mean, but it just unfolded. And I think if you just try to do good and help your kids understand that there's a way for them to be supportive of almost anything,
Yeah.
anything that you want, that is has touched them.
Yeah.
And my mom died of breast cancer. My brother died of prostate cancer. My
Mm.
sister-in-law died of ovarian cancer. So I mean, my sister-in-law and my mom, my kids knew my mom, but they didn't know my sister-in-law because it was right when they were being born. So,
Mm.
it's been a through line in our family, and they know it. And they
Yeah.
still do the Komen walks and raise money, and we're part of the team.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. To the parents who are newly dealing with this in their lives, maybe a tough medical diagnosis of some kind, what is something that you really want them to know about talking to their kids about their medical diagnosis?
I think it's being as honest. You know your kids, first of all. I mean, you know what they can. You don't have to be brutally honest until you know more, but you can sort of prepare them. And the way that preparing little kids in this book was, I may not be able to pick you up from school or make you your favorite snack, but we're going to make sure, or tuck you into bed at night, but we're going to make sure all of those things happen.
Hmm.
And you need to feel safe, right? It's about them feeling safe. And when they're older, some days is easier and some days is harder, because I had my network and I knew where they were. I didn't have to be with them. I didn't have to take care of them. I didn't have to feed them. Although we had everything all set up, my husband was great, and my Lupe, my nanny, who became my, one of my major caretakers throughout the whole thing. And I think it's just having honest conversations to a point, right?
Hmm.
If you're in treatment, you don't know what the outcomes are going to be. So there's no reason to say, well, I could die, because that will just send your kids into a whirlwind.
Hmm.
And in the back of my book, there's a page that talks about if you have older kids,
Hmm.
or if you want appropriate questions to ask, or to, if they ask you.
Hmm.
And you can go to Komen.org, and there's a place there where we go through that.
Right. Yeah, all of this is very important and notable to just mention that children sometimes don't say what you would imagine they would say or ask the questions that you imagine they would ask. They are going to ask questions that maybe you thought, oh, that sounds even insensitive. Who's going to make my sandwich? But that is important to them? Who is going to tuck me in at night? Who is going to take me to soccer practice?
Yeah,
These are important questions to them, and they are not on the face like, oh, soccer is so important, more important than me. No, it's I need to feel safe. I need to
exactly
know
what
how
it is.
my life is going to continue. These are questions I need to know so that I can feel settled.
That's right.
So important
And understand,
information.
this is not, you are still the mom, you are still the
Hmm.
dad, you are still the adult in this relationship. And you cannot take it personally. And that's what I started out by saying, with the relationship that I have with my daughters is incredibly strong. And I just know that my younger one was a little tougher in being able to take more. My
Hmm.
older one, the reason that she, went away was because she couldn't deal with.
Right.
So, and
Right.
that's okay. I mean, but you can't take it personally. Like, of course, you're like, oh, here I'm going through all of this. It
Hmm.
isn't, you still have to be a parent in this situation, or let your other parent or your friends help to parent
Hmm.
if you can't get yourself there. Because, there are days where I just couldn't even get out of bed and didn't want to talk to anyone. And they wanted to ask me a question about whether or not I signed their field trip slip or, like, I, I don't know, ask your dad.
Right. Right.
And,
And you have to be able to say that.
yeah, and you just have to do the best that you can
Hmm.
because there is
Hmm.
no playbook here.
No.
And no one asks for a disease to
No.
happen, and you're usually not prepared for it.
Right.
So you have to go with the punches and try to be as understanding as you can. But it is knowing your children. It's understanding I mean. You have good instincts as a parent normally,
Hmm.
to understand what they can take and what they can't take. But I purposely did not include the cancer word in this because I wanted to make it disease agnostic, but I don't think it's necessary depending on
Hmm.
the age of the kid.
Mm.
Of course, as they're older, when they can look things up and figure it out on their own, then you want them to stay off Dr. Google because that will scare the crap out of them.
Clearly, I mean, still to this day, doesn't it? And we still do it. What is your top tip? What do you hope that people come away with after listening to this podcast or reading your children's book? What is the top tip?
I think it's really that there's a tool out
Hmm.
there to help you through a difficult moment. And it is a difficult moment. If I ever had to, be an actress and cry on TV, I would think of the time that I told my kids about having breast cancer or the time that I had to show my mom my bald head for the first time.
Mm.
And those are two moments that were incredibly difficult, but you'll get through it. You just have to have compassion and understand that whatever you're going through, they're going to go through too, and
Right.
that it's not your mate is going to go through too, your friends are going to go through too, and it you just try to accept with grace the help that comes your way and ask if you need,
Mm.
because your kids are your first priority, of course, and I just wanted to make sure that they were taken care of and I didn't have to ask, which was fantastic. And and these were friends of mine that became extremely close friends of mine because of all of the being there for me and being there for
Mhm.
my family. And
Yeah.
when set up a meal train, don't bring sugar or wine because that's not good for
Right.
cancer, but you know or ask them, I'd like to take your kids to X, is that okay with you? you know
Hmm.
Suggest, because when you ask people that are proud, like most of us are, we'll say, we got it, everything's fine, thank you anyway. But show up. I just had one woman, a friend of mine that worked for me for years, who every few weeks just sent me a card. It made all the difference in the world.
That's
uh,
beautiful.
so
Just those little
little
gestures.
gestures help your friends with their kids.
Hmm. Right. Because that's their priority. And
Yeah.
they unfortunately can't show up in the way
Take
that
them
they
for ice
want to.
cream.
Yeah. Give
Yeah.
us the resource of the week. Where can we go to get more information about you and your organization and this book?
Yeah. Well, Love Stays Strong is is sold everywhere books are sold. So you can go on and buy it anywhere you would like. All of the proceeds go to Susan G. Komen, which is, my gift to them and for the women that are out there, that women and men that need help to talk to their kids. And you can go to Komen.org and look up different ways to tell your children about breast cancer or about cancer, about any disease. And, no one should have to go through it alone.
Thank you so much for talking about your experience and your book and really helping us to dive into this tough topic. It is a tough topic, but it is a topic that we need to approach and we need to talk about and need to make easier to discuss with our children. So thank you very much for being on the show.
I do want to throw one pitch out there for all you women who have not gotten your mammograms recently. There's still only 50% of women are getting their mammograms yearly. That just means that if there is a diagnosis, you will be on the wrong side of it. Okay? Early detection, put your big girl panties on, do it for your children.
Yeah, not comfortable, but important.
Doesn't matter. Believe me, it's a lot more comfortable than cancer.
There you go, people.
Not
Mammograms. More comfortable than cancer. That's your slogan right there. Yes, thank you. That was very well said. Thank you for being on the show today, Paula.
My pleasure. And thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, I've got my takeaways, and sweet friends, I know you have yours. Let's discuss them. You can go up to Facebook to the Dr. Robyn Silverman page. We can chat about it on Instagram. I'm going to be going back and forth with Paula all week long, talking about her book, talking about this podcast, any follow-up questions, and we can go back and forth and talk about it. If you have a question, if you want to say something, if you have a comment, please let us know. And if you love this podcast like I did, I hope you'll go up to iTunes and rate and review it so other people can learn about Paula, about her book, about Susan G. Komen, about all of the outstanding things that we talked about today. And Paula said so well. I hope you'll give that 5-star review. It makes a huge difference in getting the word out. I truly appreciate it. Remember, Kidversation cards are now available. I'm so excited for you to be using them. Only 500 sets have been printed. So please get a hold of those so that you can start having really important conversations at home, and such an easy way for 3 to 5 minutes a day or per week, however you choose to do them. That's all the time we have for today, my fellow parents, leaders, and educators. Thank you so much for tuning in to How to Talk to Kids About Anything. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, go to drrobynsilverman.com. So many great podcasts are up there, and the show notes to this podcast will be up there as well. Remember, the book today is Love Stays Strong, children's book that is beautifully done by Paula Schneider. And the show notes will be up on the podcast with the podcast on the website as well. If you want to click on the link to get this book, it will be right there. I look forward to weathering the storms and enjoying the sunny side of life together. And please remember, even on the days when you fall short, you've got this. You're here and you're getting the information you need. I know it's not easy, but never forget, there's typically a tomorrow. But of course, podcast episodes like this remind us how important it is to start early and embrace the time that we have. Parenting typically provides us with that ultimate do-over. So if you heard something today and you thought, I did not have this conversation with my kids, I shut it out, I did not want to talk about it, but you know that you need to, this is your reminder. Now is the time. We've got to talk about it. Try again. I see you, and I'm right there with you. And as there are moments when we doubt our know-how, our choices, and our sweet, sweet sanity, please know that you are 10 times the parent you think you are. Until next time, this is Dr. Robyn Silverman with How to Talk to Kids About Anything. Please tune in again and keep connecting through conversation. See you next week.
You've been listening to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, please visit drrobynsilverman.com.